The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. Read by Daniel Downey. Chapter 7. Queer Lodgings. The next morning, Bilbo woke up with the early sun in his eyes. He jumped up to look at the time and to put the kettle on, and found he was not at home at all. So he sat down and wished in vain for a wash and a brush. He did not get either, nor tea, nor toast, nor bacon for his breakfast, nor only cold mutton and rabbit. And after that, he had to get ready for a fresh start. This time he was allowed to climb on the eagle's back and cling between the wings. The air rushed over him and he shut his eyes. The dwarves were crying farewells and promising to repay the Lord of the Eagles if ever they could, as off rose 15 great birds from the mountainside. The sun was still close to the eastern edge of things. The morning was cool, the mists were in the valleys and hollows, and twined here and there about the peaks and pinnacles of the hills. Bilbo opened an eye to peep, and saw that the birds were already high up, and the world was far away, and the mountains were falling back behind them into the distance. He shut his eyes again, and held on tighter.
"Don't pinch," said the eagle. "You need not to be frightened like a rabbit, even if you look rather like one. It is a fair morning with little wind. What is finer than flying?"
Bilbo would have liked to say, "A warm bath and a late breakfast on the lawn afterwards," but he thought it better to say nothing at all, and to let go his clutch just a tiny bit. After a good while, the eagles must have seen the point they were making for, even from that great height, for they began to go down, circling round in great spirals. They did this for a long while, and at last the hobbit opened his eyes again. The earth was much nearer, and below them were trees that looked like oaks and elms and wide grasslands, and a river running through it all. But cropping out of the ground, right in the path of the stream, which looped itself about it, was a great rock, almost a hill of stone, like a last outpost of the distant mountains, or a huge piece cast miles into the plain by some giant among giants. Quickly, now to the top of this rock, the eagles swooped one by one and set down their passengers.
"Farewell,"
they cried,
"wherever you fare till your eyries receive you at journey's end."
That is the polite thing to say among eagles. "May the wind under your wings bear you where the sun sails and the moon walks," answered Gandalf, who knew the correct reply. And so they parted. And though the Lord of the Eagles became in after days the king of all birds, and wore a golden crown and his 15 chieftains golden collars, all made of gold that the dwarfs gave them, Bilbo never saw them again, except high and far off in the battle of five armies. But as that comes at the end of this tale, we will say no more about it just now. There was a flat space on top of the hill of stone and well-worn path with many steps leading down it to the river, across which a ford of huge flat stones led to the grassland beyond the stream. There was a little cave, a wholesome one, with a pebbly floor, at the foot of the steps, and near the end of the stony ford. Here the party gathered, and discussed what was to be done. "I always meant to see you all safe, if possible, through the mountains," said the wizard. "And now, by good management, and good luck, I've done it. Indeed, we're now a good deal further east than I ever meant to come with you. For after all, this is not my adventure. I may look in on it again before it's all over, but in the meanwhile, I have some other pressing business to attend to." The dwarfs groaned and looked most distressed, and Bilbo wept. They'd begun to think Gandalf was going to come all the way, and would always be there to help them out of difficulties. "I'm not going to disappear this instant," said he. "I can give you a day or two more. Probably I can help you out of your present plight, and I need a little help myself. We've no food, no baggage, and no ponies to ride, and you don't know where you are, do you? Well, I can tell you that, anyway. You're still some miles north of the path which we should have been following if we had not left the mountain pass in a hurry. Very few people live in these parts, unless they've come here since I was last down this way, which is some years ago. But there's somebody, yes, there's somebody I know of. He lives not far away. That somebody made the steps on the great rock, the Carrack, I believe he calls it. Yes, he doesn't come here often, certainly not in the daytime, and it's no good waiting for him. In fact, to wait for him it would be very dangerous. We must go and find him, and if all else goes well at our meeting, I think I shall be off and wish you, like the eagles, farewell and wherever you fare." They begged him not to leave. They offered him dragon gold and silver and jewels, but he would not change his mind. We shall see, he said, and I think I've earned already some of your dragon gold when you have got it. After that, they stopped pleading. Then they took off their clothes and bathed in the river, which was shallow and clear and stony at the ford. When they had dried in the sun, which was now strong and warm, they were refreshed, if still sore and a little hungry. Soon they crossed the ford, carrying the Hobbit, of course, and then began to march through the long green grass and down the lines of the wide-armed oaks and tall elms. Gandalf, why is it called a carrock? Asked Bilbo as he went along at the wizard's side. He called it the carrock because carrock is his word for it. He calls things like that carrocks. And this one is the carrock because it's the only one near his home he knows of it well. Who calls it? Who knows it? The somebody I spoke of, a very great person. You must all be very polite when I introduce you. I shall introduce you slowly, one by one or two by two perhaps, I think, and you must be careful not to annoy him, or heaven knows what will happen. He can be appalling when he is angry, though he is kind enough if humoured. Still, I warn you, he gets angry easily. The dwarfs all gathered around when they heard the wizard talking like this to Bilbo. Is that the person you are talking us to now? They asked. Couldn't you find somebody more easy-tempered? And you better explain it all a bit clearer, and so on. Yes, it is, certainly. No, I could not, and I was explaining very carefully, answered the wizard crossly. If you must know his name is Beorn. He is very strong, and he is a skin changer. What, a furrier? A man that calls rabbits conies when he doesn't turn their skins into squirrels? Asked Bilbo. Good gracious heavens! No, said Gandalf. Don't be a fool, Mr. Baggins, if you can help it, and in the name of all wonder, don't mention the word furrier again, so long as you are within 100 miles of his house, nor rug, cape, tippet, muff, nor any other such unfortunate word. He is a skin changer. He changes his skin. Sometimes he is a huge black bear, sometimes he is a strong, black-haired man with huge arms and a great beard. I cannot tell you much more, though that ought to be enough. Some say that he is a bear descended from the great and ancient bears of the mountains that lived there before the giants came. Others say that he's a man descended from the first men who lived before Smaug or the other dragons came into this part of the world, and before the goblins came into the hills out of the north. I cannot say, though I fancy the last is the true tale. He is not the sort of person to ask questions of. At any rate, he is under no enchantment but his own. He lives in an oak wood. He has a great wooden house, and as a man he keeps cattle and horses, which are nearly as marvellous as himself. They work for him. They talk to him. He does not eat them, neither does he hunt or eat wild animals. He keeps hives and hives of great fierce bees, and lives mostly on cream and honey. As a bear, he ranges far and wide. I once saw him sitting all alone on the top of the Carrack at night, watching the moon sinking towards the misty mountains, and I heard him howl in the tongue of bears. The day will come when they will perish, and I shall go back. Yes, yet that is what I believe. He once came from the mountains himself. Bilbo and the dwarfs had now plenty to think about, and they asked no more questions. They still had a long way to walk before them. Up slopes and down dale they plodded. It grew very hot. Sometimes they rested under the trees, and then Bilbo felt so hungry that he would have eaten acorns, if any had been ripe enough to have fallen to the ground. It was the middle of the afternoon before they noticed the great patches of flowers had begun to spring up, all the same kinds growing together as if they had been planted. Especially there was clover, waving patches of coxswain clover and purple clover and wide stretches of short white sweet honey-smelling clover. There was a buzzing and a whirring and a drone in the air. Bees were busy everywhere, and such bees! Bilbo had never seen anything like them. If one was to sting me, he thought, I should swell up as big again as I am, maybe. They were bigger than hornets. The drones were bigger than your thumb, a good deal, and the bands of yellow on their deep black bodies shone like fiery gold. We're getting nearer, said Gandalf. We're on the edge of his bee pastures. After a while they came to a belt of tall and very ancient oaks, and beyond these to a high thorn hedge, though which you could not see either, or nor scramble through. You'd better wait here, said the wizard to the dwarfs, and when I call or whistle, begin to come after me. You'll see the way I go, but only in pairs, mind, about 5 minutes between each pair of you. Bombur, you're the fattest, you'll do for two. He had better come along last. Come on, Mr. Baggins, come with me. There's a gate somewhere round this way. And with that he went off along the hedge taking the frightened hobbit with him. They soon came to a wooden gate, high and broad, beyond which they could see gardens and a cluster of low wooden buildings, some thatched and made of unshaped logs, barns, stables, sheds, and a low wooden house. Inside, on the western side of the great hedge, were rows and rows of hives and bell-shaped tops made of straw. The noise of the giant bees flying to and fro and crawling in and out filled the air. The wizard and the hobbit pushed open the heavy, creaking gate and went down a wide track toward the house. Some horses, very sleek and well-groomed, trotted up across the grass and looked at them intently, with very intelligent faces. Then off they galloped to the buildings. "They've gone to tell him of the arrival of strangers," said Gandalf. Soon they reached a courtyard, 3 walls of which were formed by the wooden house and its 2 long wings. In the middle there was lying a great oak trunk with many lopped branches beside it. Standing near was a huge man with a thick black beard and hair, great bare arms and legs with knotted muscles. He was clothed in a tunic of wool down to his knees and leaning on a large axe. The horses were standing by him with their noses at his shoulder.
"Ah, here they are,"
he said to the horses.
"They don't look dangerous. You can be off."
He laughed a great rolling laugh, put down his axe, and came forward.
"Who are you? What do you want?"
he asked gruffly, standing in front of them and towering tall above Gandalf. As for Bilbo, he could have easily trotted through his legs without ducking his head to miss the fringes of the man's brown tunic. "I'm Gandalf," said the wizard.
"Never heard of him,"
growled the man.
"And what's this little fellow?"
he said, stooping down to frown at the hobbit with his bushy black eyebrows. That's Mr. Baggins, a hobbit of good family and unimpeachable reputation," said Gandalf. Bilbo bowed. He had no hat to take off and was painfully conscious of his many missing buttons. "I am a wizard," continued Gandalf. I've never seen you, but I've heard of you, if you've not heard of me. But perhaps you've heard of my good cousin. His name is Radagast, who lives near the southern borders of Mirkwood."
Yes. Not a bad fellow as wizards go, I believe. I used to see him now and again,"
said Beorn.
"Well, now I know who you are, or who you say you are. What do you want?"
To tell the truth, we've lost our luggage and nearly lost our way and are rather in need of help, or at least of advice. I may say we've had rather a bad time with goblins in the mountains."
"Goblins?"
said the big man, less gruffly.
"Oh, you've been having trouble with them, have you? Well, what did you go near them for?"
We did not mean to. They surprised us at night in a pass we had to cross. We're coming out of the lands over west into these countries. Oh, it's a long tale."
"Then you'd better come inside and tell me some of it. Yeah, if it won't take all day,"
said the man, leading through the dark door that opened out into the courtyard, into the house. Following, they found themselves in a wide hall with a fireplace in the middle. Though it was summer, there was a wood fire burning, and the smoke was rising to the blackened rafters in search of a way through the opening in the roof. They passed through this dim hall, lit only by fire and the hole above it, and came through another smaller door, into a sort of veranda, propped on wooden posts made of a single tree trunks. It faced south and was still warm and filled with the light of the westering sun, which slanted into it and fell golden into the garden, full of flowers that came right up to the steps. Here they sat on wooden benches while Gandalf began his tale, and Bilbo swung his dangling legs and looked at the flowers in the garden, wondering what their names could be, if he had never seen half of them before. "I was coming over the mountains with a friend or two," said the wizard.
"Or two? I see only one, and a little one at that,"
said Beorn. "Well, to tell the truth, I did not like to bother you with the lot of us until I found out if you were busy. I'll give a call, if I may."
"Go on, call away."
So Gandalf gave a long, shrill whistle, and presently Thorin and Dori came through round the house by the golden path and stood bowing low before them.
"1 or 3, you meant, I see,"
said Beorn.
"But these aren't hobbits. They're dwarves."
"Thorin Oakenshield at your service. Dori at your service," said the 2 dwarves, bowing again.
"I don't need your service, thank you,"
said Beorn.
But I expect you need mine. I'm not over fond of dwarves, but if it